Hey guys, it's Lion here, the HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're going to be doing our monthly ramble. And I actually have two different rambles to do this month because I said I would do two last month and I didn't, so I have a second one to do this month. But today, we're going to be talking about an oddity in my collecting habits that I've noticed. And it has to do with the different types of things that I collect. So, broadly speaking, I collect books primarily. With things that are vaguely connected to those books, secondarily, right? And then some other things like fountain pens, which are not really connected to anything at all, right? But I collect figures, I collect Lego, I collect Funko Pops, I collect all sorts of things that relate to things I watch and things I read, right? But that's not really what I'm talking about. Today, I still want to focus mostly on the books. And there's basically three types of books that I collect. There's novels, there's comic books, and manga. And two of them are basically the same thing. So I want to focus mostly on the manga and the comic books since they are essentially the same medium, but with different rules attached to them due to the culture they come from, right? And I want to talk about that because it's something that I've noticed lately, because I've been having the opportunity to buy a lot of, hardcover collected editions of comic books. And I've noticed that is my preferred method of collecting that for comic books. However, that is not the case for manga. I actually have a bunch of hardcover manga, but I don't really enjoy collecting them that much because I think that for the size, a hardcover is actually not that good because it actually makes it a little bit more difficult to read than I would like. There are some really high quality, massive hardcover manga, like the Berserk manga by Dark Horse, or the Hellsing manga, or that new Vinland Saga manga that's coming out, the one that's 3-in-1s in these really beautiful leather-bound editions. Those are really nice. Those are very high-quality collector items, but I have one of them. I have the Hellsing Volume 1, and even though it makes the artwork pop, and it's really nice that it's really big, those are not the best editions possible. Whereas when I usually get a hardcover comic book, because I mostly collect, special collected editions, whether that's a deluxe or an ultimate collection or, whatever else it might be, these do tend to be the best way to get the series. They're not necessarily the best version possible. Sometimes they're missing things, or I feel like they could have added more stuff, but that is not necessarily bad, because that would make the book too big, or it might be things that maybe people are really not interested in paying for. And so there is a line or like a balance to be struck between how many extras you add, right? Technically, more extras is always better from the consumer point of view, but if you have to pay for those extras, which you would have to because that's how they would make money, maybe it's not that good that, a collected edition has about the same amount of pages of extras as the story it contains, because that means you have to pay twice as much for content that, while interesting and cool, might not necessarily be something that everyone wants, right? So it makes it harder to sell that book. But the thing I've noticed is that I love your basic manga. Honestly, this size, I don't like that much, but it is much better than the original Japanese size, because the original Japanese size, this is the original Japanese size. The printing on this is very cheap and very affordable, and so that makes these books really cost effective, right? These are only about the equivalent in Japanese money to $5 US, whereas these are now $12 US, right? $12 US, and that is significantly more expensive. However, the size of these is only slightly bigger, but it's actually a significant difference. There is much more space to appreciate the artwork in this size. There's also the larger manga size, like the digest size, which would be, let's see, this size. This size. And this is probably the best manga size, as you guys can see right there. But it also comes with a price hike that I don't necessarily appreciate, right? So ultimately, the Tokyo Pop style size is probably the best size for your average manga consumer, right? And for me especially, I do think it's the best size. There might be, something to be said about the 7C's small size, the ones that you guys can see right up there, which is equivalent or almost equivalent to the big B6 size for Japan, which is what they usually print their seinen series in. I don't have one easily available to show you, but that size is probably, you know, my favorite, but that is not a common size. So I will go with the Tokyo Pop size, which is the one that is well known across everyone. So well known, in fact, but specifically by a company that, even though it was Tokyo Pop that initially called it that, most people call these, you know, the this size. At least that's what I've seen. But this is probably the best size to appreciate manga in. And somehow, that's really weird because I really like these gigantic, you know, books when it comes to comic books. And I'm not really sure why that is, because ultimately it is still drawings, and they should be the same. And I really don't know what the difference is, why I like one more than the other one. Because manga still has extras in it, so it's not that. And it's not like comfort, because I realize that these are uncomfortable to read, but they're not so uncomfortable to read that it's impossible to do so. At least not like the, you know, like the giant Berserk manga. So it's not that either. It's not comfort. Why I pick one for one type of comic book and why I pick another one for another type of comic book. I think it's just because of what I find like valuable in the edition. When it comes to an American comic book, I think that the bigger size is good for a few reasons. One, the original size that they come in is already big. And although that is technically true for manga as well, I've never had the experience of reading a manga magazine, right? Which would be about this size, actually. And I don't really care to do so. Larger manga is definitely better. Like when I read on my iPad, I feel much more comfortable than when I read this. But when it comes to having a physical book, I prefer this one. This is much better. You know, when it comes to comic books, I prefer this giant size. So I don't know. I don't really have an answer. I think it is mostly due to the fact that like price per item and accessibility and stuff like that. I do think that the larger oversized hardcovers are probably the best edition for comic books, where the Tokyo Pop size is probably the best edition for manga. But it's a really odd thing because usually I prefer paperbacks for everything. And it doesn't seem to be the case with comic books. I find single issue comic books to be great for reading and for like a feeling of achievement when collecting, but they're not good for display. And that is the crux of collecting, right? There's 3 aspects to collecting and to the collecting hobby, which is acquiring things, enjoying those things, and displaying those things. And if something only does 2 of those 3 things, or maybe even only one of those 3 things, I find it to be less valuable, right? At least in like my perspective, right? That's not necessarily true of everyone else. And I think that hardcover collected editions probably manage to merge all of those 3 things in the best way possible when it comes to comic books, whereas your normal manga size does the best for manga. And I think that is maybe the answer to this. I don't know. I only thought about this morning when I was thinking about, hey, I have these really cool collections or things that I collect, but I somehow end up collecting more hardcover comic books than I do manga. And I wanted to know why that was. And I haven't really figured out an answer yet. But what I just explained is probably the best or the closest thing to an answer that I've got. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know what your preferences are. I know that because of the way I structure my channel, maybe not the right people find the type of videos that I make. And sometimes I discourage people from subscribing and stuff because you only want to subscribe for the comic book stuff and you don't care about the manga and the book stuff. And then, you know, the reverse might be true. So I know that it's not, you know, the same, but if you do collect all 3 things, or if you collect 2 of the 3 things, let me know what you think. Let me know how you feel about this, because I think it's an interesting topic. It's not really one that warrants all that much discussion, but it is one that I find enjoyable and interesting, right? So there you go. Those are my rambles for this month. I will have 1 or 2 more ramble videos this month. I'm not really sure. I want to make one about why pulp fantasy is important for male readers specifically. I want to make one about that new announcement that DC is going to launch manga-sized books next year. So I have those 2 topics, and I will do those 2 topics later on at some point. So I will see you guys in the next video.